Okay, so that seems quite frightening. I'm just going to show you now how you're going to get that out. Wet and dry paper, 600 grit, 800 grit and 1200 grit. So we start off with the coarsest, which is the smallest number, and we flat it down with water and usually a rubbing down block as well. So I'll just do this by hand. I may use a block, I don't know. So we flat this down and we flat the scratch out. I overlap the 600 grit paper with the 1200 grit paper, and now I'm going to go on and flat a larger area with 1200 grit. So that is where the 800 grit finished, that is where the 600 grit finished, and now we're going to flat down around there with 1200 grit paper. The 1200 grit paper is the finest paper that you can get, and what would happen if we wanted to make a super job of it, we would flat all the GRP down all over with this 1200 grit paper. Very difficult to rub through, so don't worry about rubbing too much with that. So we get this time the rubber block, we flat that down. That's dry and you can see that it's flat. The next stage is to buff it up. Now, if it was only that little bit just there like that, then with either rubbing compound, Brasso or T-cut, then you could polish that in quite successfully. Take about 5 minutes to do, but I'll show you how to do it with the machine because it's a lot quicker, and I'm anticipating that all of you will make a super job and do the whole car. Now obviously you won't all have these polish machines, but you will have Black & Decker drills that will have those lambswool bonnets in a bit of a kit you get with it that your auntie bought you at Christmas. So you'll put that lambswool bonnet onto the Black & Decker and you polish it like that. Now you notice I've got my overalls on now because this stuff does splash everywhere. We've just got to be a bit careful because you don't want these polishes to get onto the interior trim or say onto the hood of the car that's just there, so you've got to be a little bit careful. So we've got the polish in this, we've got this like that, we've got the polish machine with a foam mop head on it. It is a professional item. Right, you'd normally do that twice, then you finish off with a finer polish, like T-cut, and then, if you was that perfectionist, then you would actually wax polish it as well. So just getting close to that cameraman, and you just tell him, has that scratch gone?
Yep.
It looks pretty good, really smooth. That's equal to any kind of paint finish that you can get. Thank you. Which consists of a hood with welded seams and welded windows, and a pair of detachable side screens, a two-piece hood frame, a couple of straps, a fastener pack, and there is also a couple of fixing brackets cut. You stopping?
Right.
And a pair of fixing brackets. It all comes together in a strong black plastic bag that you can retain and put in the back of the car when the hood's not in use. Now we move on to a car that's got the hood frame already on it, And you can see that could you bring me a bracket, Carl, please? That the hood frame sits on the back of the car and it follows the contour of the car. The fixing bracket goes just here, like that. The person that's fitted these brackets have chosen to crank them. There's no need for that. The bracket goes straight on there, and then there's a simple roofing bolt goes through the longest part of the frame, and then another one through the short frame. The frame then comes up like that and goes forward like so. The straps that are supplied in the kit go on there, and they restrict the movement of the hood frame. So that is a hood frame erected like that. So that now, we really, when we're doing this, we start off with the middle stud. So you'll put the middle stud in like that, and then you've really got to just project over and make sure that you get all of these in like this, and they're all the way down. So you're going to start off by putting the hood on the front of there. When you put these fasteners in, you'll see there are a 3-part fastener. They are a quality fastener. They've got better recently. They've come from a different source now. You'll see how they go. You need to bifurcate them over to fasten the 2 parts together. With that on there like that, we're now going to lay the hood over the roll bar like that. And you've got some horizontal lines on the back of the car to work to. So we'll just put that there like that. We'll just assume that that's a horizontal line there, which is not far. Now the next thing you do is you do erect the frame. So we've got the frame already, and we bring the frame up like that, bring the small hoop backward, Carl. Okay, and that goes like that. So we're now going to bring the hood over there. So it's on there like that. Now, what happens now is, you do need help, cut that like this, you do need help, and you've got to pray that you're doing this in warm weather and not when it's frosty and horrible. So you must ignore all these fasteners on here, pretend they're not there. So you've got the hood and you see it's come down past there like that, which is quite good. And you can see that you've got the hood frame tucked into the corner where that sewn seam is, which is also good. And ignore these fasteners, they're not there yet. So back to being frosty and horrible, if it is hot cold, then it's very difficult for you to fit this hood because the vinyl or the material is quite stiff. So you're doing to be in a warm garage, and if necessary put a blow heater inside the car. So the next thing is that you want to pull the hood tight. So you need to make a note of that seam there, make a note of the seam there, and measure it from the side of the body so you've got the hood in the middle of the body. Right? So assuming you've got it in square, you then need the sticky tape like that. And you need to be putting that on there and pulling it as tight as you can. Like that. But remember, this is the reason we put that sticky tape line on the car, so that well, you're going to put it down square. So you're using that as a bit of a datum line. You're using that as a datum line. You stick the tape down, Carl. Right, down you go. Okay. We'll come back to this side again. And we're pulling that down tight. Now, I'm only doing this once because time isn't with us today. Carl's got a hot date tonight, and I've got to edit this video. So we've now had one bite at that, and that's quite good. You can see that it must be quite square because the bars from the roll bar are nicely on the inside of the window, and we've pulled it down as much as we can. And what would happen is that we'd have another go at this. We'd pull this down another ½ an inch. And then when we were satisfied that it was down as far as we can, and the hood was quite tight like that, we would then supplement these with more bits of sticky tape, and we'd make sure we'd make sure that that was level. It's moved up from that side, it's not level now. We'd make sure that was level, and then we'd mark out, we'd space these out evenly. They look like they're about 6 inches apart. We'd space those out evenly so they're the same all the way around. We'd mark it with a little pen. It looks like we've got about 3/4 of an inch. Then we'd have a drill and some ordinary panhead self-tappers, and we drill through the hood and through the body and put that panhead self-tapper in. So that they would go all the way around. We'd move away all round the body like that, and then you would systematically take them all out, put the hood on the set table, and fasten these fasteners on. And then with the fasteners on, we'd then fasten the female fasteners on, and then we'd put the male ones on the body. So that's basically how you'd fit the hood. There is more work to it than that, but that is basically it. Screen. We've got buyback windows in that are welded. There is a metal frame inside them, so it's possible to tweak the metal frame to get it to fit your car nicely. It's got Velcro fastened to it so that it helps you to keep the drafts out. And there is a set of lift-off hinges supplied in your kit. Now be very, very careful, because they're a bit confusing, these hinges, because there is 8 parts to them, and each part is half the parts are different, so there's 4 different lots of parts in. So basically, look at them and decide how it works. Look carefully at the way we fitted them. So we fitted the hinge to the top of the pillar, okay, and the other hinge is 1 inch from the bottom of the pillar, from that corner. So they go onto there, exactly butting up to the outside of the pillar, and then the corresponding parts are pop riveted or will fasten on the small nuts and bolts onto the frame of the screen. Okay, you must feel the frame to make sure you know where the frame is. In your own mind, establish how wide the frame is, what you can drill, and then basically that just fastens on there like that. That fastens on there like that, goes in there, and then it tucks in behind the pillar so that there isn't any drafts that go down there. And we've just tweaked that a bit already, just so it goes around that corner, and you can see that it fits quite well like that. And the Velcro holds it in the top, and there is some straps you put to the inside to pull it in, to fasten it from the inside. So that's it on. There's a gutter there that does give you a little bit of protection from the rain. So that gutter's like that. That catches a bit of water, and it stops it running inside the body. So it is quite a good fitting hood. We're pleased with it. It's the best one we had yet, and I'm sure that you'll be happy with it as well. You've still got to put an air filter on this car. With regards to the air filter, the battery, the top of the engine, the servo, what you need to do is to make a little pyramid of plasticine. So you can make a pyramid of plasticine and close the bonnet down. So when it squashes it, you can see how much room you've got for the air filter or whatever components in there. Air filter that we're recommending are pancake type. Strips of metal that you can either bend like that to make a P-clip or bend like that to make a balloon clip. You'll see there is already little indications on the strips where you bend them in the vise. To make a balloon clip, you put 2 bends in, and they just go round a bar like that and squeeze up and bolt together, and that will give you a balloon clip like so, for fastening things on with. Then a P-clip, it's the same but with 1 bend in, and then that just bends round like so, and squeezes up, and that gives you a P-clip. The door seal rubber on top of the firewall panel all the way around to seal it when the bonnet comes down, but we would suggest that you put some foam rubber on the underneath of your bonnet to supplement it as well, so that it makes a really good seal from the engine compartment to the cockpit. You can also see through the hole that there is already in the firewall panel. We've taken the heater tubes and the speedometer cable, but remember to make sure that you put a grommet around there so that the sharp metal doesn't cut into the rubber or the cable. You'll see that is a piece of plastic pipe that you've been given the kit, cut in half and covered in vinyl to finish off the top of the cockpit. And at the back, a piece of stainless here is the number plate lamp and number plate bracket. You need to form it into a shape like that, with a curve to the top, and then that is formed into a clip to go around this bar, like so. Bend it right the way around. Like that. Then you'll put 2 bolts in and bolt it together. Finally, you will need to paint your Robin Hood 2B. We've already said that it's important that you paint the chassis with a good bare metal primer. We use a black primer, and we give 2 coats of that, and that is sufficient for the chassis. Finally, the parts that you see, the rollover bar and the front suspension, that can be painted again with a good quality cellulose paint, because you do see that. With regards to all the metalwork and the GRP, it's important that before you start painting your 2B that you do wash this down really well with thinners, cellulose thinners. Obviously guard against fire, but you do need a small piece of rag that is very, very wet with thinners, and really wash it on and then wipe it off to get all the residue of the wax release agent off the GRP and the protective oily coating off the mild steel. This is both sides. You'll then go on to apply a good bare metal primer. Remember that they do sell what's known as a primer surfacer that's usually grey. Ideally you would use a proper primer first and then put a surfacer on top. Apply about 4 coats of apply 2 coats of bare metal primer and then about 4 coats of the grey surfacer. This can then be flattened down with 600 grit paper and then the subsequent coats of gloss applied. Obviously we're talking about do-it-yourselfers now, so we are talking in terms of cellulose paint only. We definitely don't advise that you use 2-pack unless you're experienced and have got the proper breathing apparatus. So we're talking now about applying the cellulose top coat. Usually 4 coats of this is sufficient, and make sure that you get the dry areas on the inside of the wings sprayed well. Obviously after you've done this, if it's not quite to your satisfaction, you can nib it off with 1200 grit paper and then polish it up with a polishing mop, just as we've showed you in the video for rectifying the GRP. It's a good idea to spray the bonnet separately and the cycle wings separately, and you can make horses for those to put them on horses, so it's easier to spray. You treat the underside of the car again with a bare metal primer first. It appears best now to spray stone chip type material underneath the car. Usually 3 tins of that is sufficient to the whole car underneath. Those of you who have got stainless steel chassis may feel it necessary to treat the welds. The whole chassis is welded with stainless steel wire, but unfortunately due to the heat involved in the MIG welding, then the stainless steel does lose some of its properties, and whilst it won't corrode, it will appear to go rusty. So it may be a good idea to wire brush all the welds on the chassis and give them a coat of either primer or some kind of sealer to stop the water getting to them. In you'll notice there's oceans of room on the spline shaft that goes into the gearbox. This spline shaft was designed for the old Cortina type axle that moved up and down, went in and out. So you should have kind of round about an inch, inch and a quarter clearance between the back of the oil seal and the start of the prop shaft. But if this varies to virtually nothing or to a couple of inches, don't worry, it's okay. In the kit you did receive a tube of silicone sealer. There is a material that's superior to this that you can use in lots of places, which is called brush-on brushable seam sealer. Now this is made by various people and it's available from all motor factors. It has the same properties as a sealer, except it works out a lot cheaper and it's a lot stronger. For instance, when you've finally completed your Robin Hood and you've got all the panels on, then you could seal everything off with this stuff. It's kind of very, very sticky, and you brush it on. Brush it on between two tram lines of masking tape and then pull the tape off. And it does set quite hard, but not hard like filler. It's the kind of stuff that used to be used in the bad old days by used car dealers. If there was a hole in the body, they used to put masking tape over the hole and brush this over the top and some undersealing, and everybody thought it was like brand new. You notice that I'm wearing these goggles. This is just to remind you that when you're doing jobs on your 2B that are obviously dangerous, like grinding, drilling, and all those associated jobs, make sure you wear these goggles. They're not expensive, and when you get them brand new you can see through them quite well. Remember, the tyre pressure on your Robin Hood 2B needs to be 17 pounds all round. Now, lots of you have come and told me that they've managed to fit our seats and the Ford Sierra seats quite successfully with the runners already on them, and these owners are quite proud of this fact. But I would say it's quite possible that they haven't yet fitted the windscreen and they haven't looked through the windscreen. So just make sure before you shake hands with yourself and congratulate yourself that you fitted these seats with the runners on, that you can see clearly through the centre of the windscreen and your vision isn't being blocked by the top bar. To seats, we are developing a new seat that is only a fiberglass shell. It will be quite comfortable, and this will be available towards the end of the year. If you fit these seats, then it will give you a lot more room in the cockpit if you've got long legs. This video is to cover the points that have been raised by people that ring me. Remember that the technical line is still here for people that need help. And as I said before, I may not seem absolutely thrilled to hear from everybody, but please keep using it, because I really do want to help you. It is important that you do watch the video, and often if you've watched the video then you won't need to ring me, but please, I'd sooner people rang me if they're not sure on anything than to struggle on without help. Some time, but do an index and it will help you quite a lot. Supplied in the kit, the combination lights. Remember that they are both the same lamp. You do have to reverse the lens on one side so that they're both a pair. This piece here and this piece here are both scrap, so they don't fit anywhere in your Robin Hood, except this piece could be put back in if you fit our fuel tank in between the two seats. Style, driver's foot panel, and obviously we've supplied it in two bits so that the steering column goes through that, and this can be moved round to get the column in the right place. You obviously pop rivet together when you've finished it. When you stripped your donor vehicle down, you'll remember that on the offside inner wing panel above the chassis leg, towards the end of the engine compartment, the back of the engine compartment, there was a valve in the brake line about the size of a large hard-boiled egg. This valve was fitted at a particular angle and could only be fitted to the chassis at that angle. Inside this valve there is a ball bearing. When you brake hard in an emergency, then the ball bearing runs forward and blocks off the fluid to the back wheels so the back wheels don't lock up. We've always maintained that on a robinhood, because of the good weight distribution of the engine, etc., you didn't need this valve. Now, the brake line we've supplied doesn't incorporate this valve. We have found in one or two cases that people have gone for the SVA test, and the SVA test on the brakes has failed. It is quite a stiff test, and the reason that it's failed in one or two cases was simply because of the fact that the brakes hadn't been bedded in properly. There was no provision for someone to go out and drive the car for 20 or 30 miles to bed the brakes in. So therefore that was the reason we felt the brakes had failed the test. If you wanted to subject your 2B to a lot lesser test so that it would definitely pass, then if you fit this brake balance valve or deacceleration valve into your system, it means that the examiner cannot carry out the normal test, simply because for a test to be carried out with a car fitted with this deacceleration valve, it means the car must be moving. There is no provision on the standard test that's carried out on the rolling road for the car to move. Therefore that ball bearing cannot roll forward. In the case of your car being fitted with this deacceleration valve, it means that the examiner must then carry out another test, a lesser test, a test that your car will definitely pass, or almost definitely pass. It means he's got to put the old type brake meter in, put it in the passenger floor, then go round the yard in it and apply the brakes. So if you've got a fear that your car may not pass a test, or you're adamant that your car will pass a test first time, then you could fit this valve. My advice to you is to fit it to slightly greater valve, a slightly greater angle than it came out of the Ford Sierra, and it would only work in an extreme emergency, and it may be quite useful for you. We come now to the front cycle wing bracket that we've touched on lightly before. Now you can see there the base of the bracket, the base of the front near side bracket, and you can see that is the Ford Sierra stub axle there, and you can see into it goes what we're referring to as the dummy McPherson strut that the top ball joint goes into, and then we can see trapped between the two is the base of the cycle wing bracket, and we've said that it's bent over, and we've drilled through that forging and put a nut and bolt through it. But remember, although we're trapping it between the McPherson, dummy McPherson strut and the stub axle, we're not drilling that hole in it yet, because what happens next is we need to put into that base of the cycle wing bracket the two L-shaped tubes that form the front and the rear of the cycle wing. Now these should be from the tyre around about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and the tube that's at my feet now is what you all had in the kit, and you've ticked it off on your list, and it's called the multi-bend tube. Now basically this tube now has all the bends in it for the two front cycle wing brackets, and incidentally it also has the bends in it for the swept wings. So everyone gets one, and it's used in two different forms depending on whether you've got the cycle wing brackets or the long wing brackets. Now for the cycle wing brackets, this has got 2 lots of identical but handed front and rear cycle wing brackets, and now I'm going to, with a marker, I'm going to mark on here how you cut the tube to start with. So you cut the tube at the middle of the straights, so it's the middle of that straight like that, and you cut it in the middle of that straight there, and then you cut it in the middle of that straight there. So as we look at it now, we can see that if we cut off
that just there. But this then, that piece there, that I'll mark here, that piece then pushes into the back of the base of the cycle wing bracket. So that will push into the tube that has an ID of round about 22 mil. Now you can force it in, but it would be easier if you either put a slit in that tube like so, or a slit in the other tube. It makes it easy to push in. In any event, you could deburr the tube, and in any event you could file the slight inner weld from that tube. So we've got that there, that pushes into the tube, and you can rotate it to get it to clear the tyre, and you may just have to slightly tweak it slightly by just putting it in the vise, getting a bit bigger tube and just bending it. You shouldn't have to tweak it much. And what happens then, that when we come to the next piece of the tube, that piece just there, that I'll mark with a little circles on it, that goes then into the front of the near side bracket, and then that comes round the corner and across there. Now the thing is that it's totally adjustable. You can twist them, turn them, and do various things to them to get them so both the brackets are parallel to the tyre, and there's a gap of, it's an inch, it's only an inch and a half, but an inch is perfect. We'll look later at the wings square on, and you'll see the kind of relationship you want between the bracket and the tyre. The other thing I'll draw your attention to, that you can see they're the fixing screws. They're simple self-tapping screws that just go through the wing and then into the tube. You notice that we could have rotated this wing clockwise to bring it back further so it doesn't expose, so it exposes less of the tyre. So that's an option that you've got yourself, but you'll see that later when we look at it square on. So you see we've used two of those tubes from that bracket. And then as simply we go on then, and we can see then that we've got another one here. We'll put little dots on that. That one there is the opposite one. It's the offside rear cycle wing bracket, and then that leaves us with a little bit, another right angle one there, and that's the front offside bracket. Obviously this bit there that's left, you'll need that somewhere else in the kit, but it's not used on the cycle wing brackets. These mudguards, you're trying to get the mudguard so that it's directly over the tyre, and so you need to get the brackets as close to the tyre as you can. So if you can see my finger, I've got my finger just down in between the tyre there and there. Can we see that? And that is what you're aiming for, around about 3/8 to a ½ inch gap. So once you have got that gap correctly, then you'll put a small self-tapping screw into the two brackets to stop them rotating anymore. And then when you're certain, then you can drill the base bracket and through the forging to fix that to stop it turning. As we look at the wings square on, you can see that we've got it in a neutral position. It's giving some protection to the pedestrians at the front of the car, and yet it's covering the wheel at the back for splash spraying coming off the wheel. But you could rotate it round another few degrees so that it was exposed more of the tyre. You need obviously to be able to get your fingers at least around there, so you've got clearance all the way around there like that. We've got the snap-on edging on the edge of the wing for the SVA, and we've just fastened the wing simply on self-tapping screws, but we have bedded the wing on a bed of silicone sealer. Don't pull the screws down too much, because you'll put dents in the wing, you'll deform the GRP. And remember the silicone sealer, if you put the silicone sealer on the bracket but put masking tape onto the wing, you can lift the wing off
Through.
Those of you who have got long wings and you've got the new plus pack suspension, that's the wishbone suspension, you'll note that you'll get a plate that's an identical plate to the headlamp plate, and off that will be a small piece of tube welded onto it that has a ID of 23mm, and into that will push one of those multi-bend tubes off the major multi-bend tube, just as you did with the other system. So instead of it coming off the plate of the top of the suspension, it will come off this headlamp plate. There'll be a plate the same as that you'll trap in underneath there, and there'll be a small tube come off, so you'll have the curved tube coming off that underneath your long wing. Those of you who have got painted cars, it's important that you seal the gap in between the bonnet. We don't advise sealing it so you can't see it, because you won't be able to rub it down that good. And it's important that you seal it with a mastic type sealer, a proper seam sealer. But it's important first that you wash any oil or grease off the panel before you start. So basically all you do is you squirt it in with your silicone, with your skeleton gun, and you just rub your finger along it like that to take the surplus off. And that's basically it. Let it cure properly, and then you can paint it in the normal fashion. While I'm on that, you'll notice that on the car we've got this dummy bonnet shut line. All we've done is 2 tram lines of masking tape where you'd like to see the line, and about a 1/4 inch apart, squirted the silicone sealer on, run along it with the finger, then pulled it off straight away. We've chosen to take it 3.5 inches from the screen rubber, and we've brought it down, but what's important is that where it comes off the bonnet's body side, that it does come vertically up. So it's about 1/4 inch from where the pillar terminates. It comes vertically up. So you've got to probably have a couple of goes at it. Draw it on your bonnet with a pencil before you start. In your kit you all got this block of 4 demister vents. So you can see that underneath the plastic covering there is stainless steel. So basically they're cut into 4. So you cut along the way the slots are, cut them into 4, and you can see here that we've put them on top of the bonnet or on top of the scuttle neatly with 3 screws to duct the air that comes out towards the screen. So they look quite neat, and the new panel that you get in the kit to stiffen up the back of the bonnet, then the new panel that you may get in the kit to stiffen up the back of the bonnet, that terminates just in front of the demister vents, so the screws that you're going to use will hold the whole lot together. See, we've joined them neatly in the middle, we've rounded the corners off, and obviously we point them towards a glass screen. The other thing I'll draw your attention to is the screws that hold the windscreen on. You can see that the small 5mm or 6mm screws that hold the windscreen on, make sure that you trim off all the surplus thread that sticks through the back, because as you lift the bonnet up, they will catch on to the tube. So they actually do brush past the tube, so it's important that you trim them off. If the camera person could just get square on to this area, you'll see that when I've referred to this dummy line, you can see where I referred earlier to this dummy bonnet closing line. This is important for it to cosmetically look right, that comes off there, and that is exactly 90 degrees. You see, it just missed that pillar there by about a 1/4 inch, so it goes up there and it goes along the front there. A little bit of practice you'll get that right. It's always difficult to finish off the end of this bonnet edge trim round here, where it finishes just here, but you've got to trim that off as neat as you can. And again, there's the 8mm roofing bolt that goes through there. You can see the flexi brake pipe coming from the brake cylinder into the body side. There are various different brake pipes supplied. Some have got rubbers on, some have got little springs, but in principle they are all the same, that on full lock to left and right that brake pipe mustn't foul on anything or rub on anything, and obviously on full lock it mustn't be stretched. So just think carefully where you're going to drill the hole in the body side, bearing in mind that there could be a member behind it, so don't drill the hole till you make sure the rear exit's all right. You can see that it goes up to the body side like that. You will need a small lock nut on the back of it, and we suggest that you use part of an old female nipple that you can cut off to make a small lock nut, because it's a difficult thread to find. Make sure the end is correct that screws into your copper pipe or your metal pipe you've had from us. Make sure if it's a domed end, then the other side is the other end of the pipe will accept it. As we look inside the car now to the brake pipe route, that really is common sense. If we look now at the donor vehicle's servo and master cylinder and the route of the brake pipes, then it is common sense. You'll see that the one at the back of the master cylinder does go to the back brakes. That comes straight out of there and then goes down the tunnel, clip to the tunnel top or the tunnel side, and then the two pipes from the front of the cylinder go to the front brakes, obviously. They're carefully bent round like that, and then they're fed alongside the tube. One goes down to that flexing, the other one goes across the front of the car. Pipe comes across the front of the car underneath this member, or in the case of the sliding pillar system, underneath or across the two cross members to that side of the car. They all must be clipped up neatly and fastened down so that they're not loose. You need fixings at least every 4 inches for the SVA test. Wash your bottle on your car at some stage, and you may want to use the one from the Ford Sierra, which is quite large, or you'll get one from us again which is quite large, or you may choose to use a smaller one, one you'll get from an accessory shop or from another car. And really anywhere in the car that you can find the space for, you could put it. Don't put it at the front where it could encroach on the airflow to the radiator or the fan. There is an area just here that it could go. It could go at the side of the fuse box or at the side of the heater, but remember your wiper mechanism will come down into that area. So it could be you've got to put it at the bottom of the driver's foot, the passenger footwell, or something like that. We've managed to fit the standard Ford Sierra switches. If you've got different switches, if you've got the switches supplied by us, then it is possible to modify this cowl for it to fit by just reshaping it and a little bit of body filler. You'll be able to get it to fit. Alternatively, you can make a metal cowl for it carefully and cover it in leather cloth.
Right.
In the headlamp unit that you've been supplied, there's a small window. Through that window shines a side light. To be correct, you would get a side light bulb holder from a Mark 1 Escort or a Mini. That clips onto the 3 prongs of the headlight. If you haven't got that, then you can use the number plate light from the rear of the Sierra, and that will just dangle down from the 3 brass prongs of your headlight and shine through the window in the headlight. The spare wheel naturally sits on the spare wheel holder. To hold it in position, you need a piece of threaded rod. So in the kit you will get some threaded rod around about 9 inches long. That is used to hold the spare wheel on. In your kit now we are giving you a piece of 0.7mm mild steel as an offcut from this offcut sheet you'll be cutting some straps out that will go around your fuel tank if you've had the fuel tank from us. So you'll need to put those straps around the tank and then fasten those straps onto the tube work to pull it in tight. You will need a little bit of rubber around the tank. You can use an old rubber car mat or something like that.